First, let me introduce Jojo Kobner, who produced the Schools of Shame. Jojo, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you're doing very well.
Yes, I'm very great.
So I mean, why Schools of Shame?
Okay, so if you remember, I think 5 years ago, 2017, I did a similar. That one I was set up to fail. Set up to fail was looking at okay. I was looking at the basic level. Now we need to set up our children very well at the foundation stage very well so that they can grow and then be absorbed into the secondary system and then the university at the very basic level. You'd realize that it is very weak. We are not investing so much into it. Then I realized that I went round. I've been going around. Then went back to all the schools that I went to, and nothing had changed. It was just two schools that had been built. That was in the Krachi and Chimuru district. Because the statistics, 5,000 schools, and then so I said, okay, this is the time for us to remind government that they have a commitment to the children, to make sure that they have the very needed infrastructure for them to, grow and then become very important in society. Because if you look at the hurdles that rural children would have to go through, it's crazy. Where children have to walk like several kilometers before they get to school. When they get to school, there are no furniture. Some schools do not have school feeding, and so some of them are hungry. Some have no uniform. Some have no footwear. All these are hurdles that these children have to cross. And some schools, what is interesting, there are no teachers. So the children, their parents even contribute and get volunteers to come and teach the children.
Really?
Yes. So in at Kofi DA Primary in East Manprisi, that was the situation. So you could see that
So
the
these
parents
understand the importance of education.
they do,
But unfortunately, there's no one to teach their children.
and
They
so
are recruiting them.
so they recruit them. So they look for teachers, they pay them, and these are GES approved schools. GES has just posted like two teachers to Kofi DA primary schools, and two teachers are supposed to teach 9 subjects. So you can imagine. And we expect these children to pass and pass very well. And so that was the focus. Was like, how do we? I was looking at the story. Okay, it's not just the suffering of the children; it's the resilience. Because out of these, all these hurdles, all the challenges, some of them become very important. Some of them graduate. Some of them beat all the odds and then become very important. And so we have to make it very easy for them to scale these hurdles.
What are we going to hear in the Ghana Schools of Shame?
We will hear children pleading with governments that they need furniture. It was really sad seeing children with their knees down, very dirty, squatting in this 21st century. They were just there. You see them dirty. They have nothing, virtually nothing, even no textbooks, virtually nothing, and they are really trying. So it's more like a punishment where their parents heard them go, hurry up and go to school. So it become very important, and then the children would have to just get there, and there is absolutely nothing. Sometimes no teachers, and they have to sit under trees. And I went there during the beginning of the Hamatan. In the north, late December, where they were writing examination, just to see how they cope writing examination without furniture. And you see the children, right by some of them will get there, and then they would kneel, and then they would put their papers on the bare floor. Some will put them on their laps, and they will be writing.
They will kneel before taking the exam.
Yes, kneel, because
that's punishment.
It is punishment. Like, you go on their knees as if they are praying, and it's indeed extremely sad situation.
Well, for those of you who are watching us on Facebook Live, you can actually see behind us, there's a picture there. Some students sitting on the floor and writing. Others probably came with a plastic chair, and so at writing while seated in the plastic chair, writing on their thighs. Oh my goodness, I'm just looking at this. Anyway, well, nobody can make a country a better place but us. We are the only ones who can help in the development of Mother Ghana. So yes, we may be going through challenges, but a key question is, how do we get out of these challenges? And what role must be played by all of us in getting us out of this challenge? We've just been talking about 8 pupils drowning. Just think about it for a minute. That these pupils, all they sought was access to education. And just think about it for a minute, how it will feel if your child said, "Mommy, Daddy, I am going to school," and never returns, but has to die under these circumstances. Why must children cross rivers, water bodies without life jackets as they go to school? Why must these students go through these challenges, all to seek education? Why must students sit on the floor? No table, no chair, no desk, learning to take over from the older generation in this country. Where did they go wrong? That's a conversation we'll be having shortly here on the Super Morning Show. After which I ask you the question, what is wrong with focusing on the negatives in this country so they get solved to become the positives? Should we pretend that all is well in this country? Over 34,000 children in the northeast region of Ghana have no furniture. The situation is no different too in Bandai district of the northern region, where there is a furniture deficit of over 7,000. This dire situation has forced school children to carry their own chairs from home, else they will have to sit on stones or slam it hard on the bare floor. This is the painstaking checks and observations by Joy News in our quest to ascertain the state of education and infrastructure in Ghana. In a series of documentaries dubbed Ghana Schools of Shame, Joy News features editor Jojo Kobna reports that aside the lack of furniture and dilapidated structures that are death traps, children have to walk several miles to seek what is supposed to be a free, compulsory, and accessible education at the basic level. The reality is that children in these deprived areas have become demoralized to pursue their dream.
Recently, I saw some TV programming. They were talking about Ghana's School of Shame. And I was ashamed. Because of all the great things happening in the country, we want to focus on the negative and get the world to know that there are negative things in Ghana. Can you look straight in the eye of these children and tell me they are coming from schools of shame? They are coming from schools of fame. They're going to change the story of Ghana. These young men and women has a fierce determination and it's palpable when you get close to them. They want to change the face of this country. What we couldn't do, they are going to do it. All that we need to do is to let them know that yes, there are challenges in the country, but we should shine a spotlight on these great things that we are doing. And if we can take a cue, we should rather do a program that highlights these young men and women and tell the world that Ghana is moving despite of the challenges.
Education Minister, he says you cannot look into the face of these children and say they're coming from schools of shame. They're coming from schools of fame. And the story must be told that these children are prepared to take on the world. In fact, yes, there may be challenges, but despite these challenges, the Ghanaian child is prepared to face whoever in the world. We still have Kofi Asare, who's Executive Director for Africa Education Watch. Emmanuel Kojo Afful is a trained and certified teacher with 27 years experience in the classroom. Kofi, you've just listened to Schools of Shame. You've listened to the students share their stories, complain about why things must change. You've heard from then Dr. Babia, vice presidential candidate, at the time when he was, supply or donating desk to schools that did not have, to what we're experiencing today. And of course, the minister who says, why do you want to focus on negative things when there are positive things? You cannot look into the face of these children and say you're coming from schools of shame, but schools of fame. Kofi, what's your take?
The minister could have responded to the issue without being defensive. No one needs a lecture on how much media space has been committed to highlighting the government's STEM agenda, infrastructure in senior high schools, which is a flagship. No one needs, or a reminder on how prominent the media has provided coverage on the secondary school infrastructure and STEM infrastructure. Yeah. And I'm sure that's what the minister is referring to. But you see, the media, like civil society organizations, have a role to play. Mm-hmm. Their role is to demand policy accountability from the government. Now, their role is to ensure that governments in implementing education policies implement same consistent with 36.2, which is even and balanced development. Mm. The media's role is not just highlighting STEM schools and senior high school buildings and then the Wi-Fi in senior high schools, but also to remind government that as part of 36.2, schools in Pandai, schools in Tonon also require befitting infrastructure and furniture, just like other schools in Accra. That is the media's role. The media, in doing this activity, must first create the awareness. Because, to be honest with you, it appears the minister does not appreciate the full implications of the situation on the at hand. And it may be a genuine challenge that, you see, sometimes putting life...
Kofi is the Minister of Education.
No, I know what I'm talking about.
That's a sector you're supposed to be leading policy in and not know the challenges on the ground?
No, listen, sometimes putting lives, okay, attaching lives, statistic, is a different issue. So you can report, it's like reporting on war, 100 people died, or you think it's just a number. But when you see one person dying, okay, when you see it, you realize that 100 is too much. But then you see, many times we deal with this statistic. Because if the minister fully appreciates the enormity of the issue of schools under trees, where over 1 million children learn under such circumstances, when children commute 10 kilometers to school just to attend junior high school, okay, if I'm not sure if I appreciate the implication on equitable access, on dropouts, on transition, on even quality learning, perhaps the response will be different. And it goes beyond the minister. It goes to the government.
So hold on a second, Kofi. Kofi, if a minister doesn't appreciate the challenges within his sector, does he have any business continuing as a minister?
The media's role is to create awareness about the challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but my question is, you say the minister may not know these things. And I'm saying, if a minister doesn't know challenges within his sector, does he have any business continuing as minister, Kofi?
No, I said that the minister may not know the full implication, the full picture of the schools and matrice issue. May be underestimated. That is why he quickly reminded you that there are many schools of fame and that he's rather interested in hearing that story and not this one. You understand? So that's why I'm saying that perhaps he doesn't understand the 360 degrees angle to the issue. But your role, I don't fault you. Your role is to create awareness. Listen, in advocacy, policies change when we create awareness. It's the first step of change. After making the minister aware that yes, there are schools of fame, but there are more schools of than schools of fame, after getting that awareness, the next stage is to create a compelling situation for the minister to act in response to the schools of shame. And I see the comments the minister made as not being, the minister wasn't all right with the situation. You understand? So he felt bad that this story is being told about Ghana's education. That feeling, that bad feeling, is what I call to create a compelling situation for the minister and the government to act. It is the second step towards change. And I'm happy that the minister is not okay. He's not all right about the story.
But he's suggesting we focus on positives.
That you are reporting such a story. It is a positive step in our advocacy.
Okay.
And the third step will be the point where, after feeling sad that such a story is being played about Ghana's education system, he will go ahead and take action, commit more resources in improving basic education infrastructure in deprived areas. It is that action that will bring change. So we are well within the process of change, and we shouldn't see it in any way as a detraction. It's actually a good omen that the minister is not happy about the Schools of Shame documentary. If he was happy, then there's a problem. But if he's not happy, then we are succeeding in creating a compelling situation for the minister and the government to act on an issue that has been there for a long time.
Okay. Let me bring in Emmanuel, Kojo Afful. So, you are a trained teacher. You've had the education minister.
Your call has been put on hold.
You've had the education minister make the point that, well, can we look into the face of these students and tell them they are in schools of shame? No, they are in schools of fame. Is the minister underestimating the problem? And if he is, how sure are we that he's going to address these problems?
Winston.
Kojo.
Yeah, Winston. Winston, you see, beyond Kofi's technically insightful presentations on education, I think that I don't even have to be technical about this. This is commonsensical. That even if one citizen of this country is making a documentary about a sector as sensitive as education, that should be good enough for you to start working on, not to talk of a media institution. I think that the minister's problem is one of nomenclature and not the fact that the issues are really appalling. If the minister's problem is the fact that you titled it Ghana Schools of Shame, then I'm sorry to say that he doesn't befit, that position doesn't befit his status. Now, I've heard him tout his credentials as owning schools in America, running schools. This is not what we need in this country. The president brought him to this country to fix a problem, and the problem is called education. So regardless of where you are coming from, you've got to fix the problem. Last week or so, I'm not quite sure of the date and the time, I heard the same minister talk about, in fact, almost blaming lecturers and professors of the universities for not designing programs that make graduates employable. Mm-hmm. Now, was he then talking about schools of fame? I think that we should be upfront with the truth. I will feel very silly to stand in front of a child and deceive the child that your situations are fine because there's this or that or that. I mean, I don't think that the minister should be forgiving anyone. I've said that in any civilized country, Parliament will be hailing the minister to them to answer questions. Even for the fact that 8 children trying to access education died, someone has got to ask questions. Winston, I went to a college of education, and there's a simple topic called school and society. In school and society, you are taught the basic ingredients that any child in the community needs to have an education. And so if, through no fault of citizens in this country, they are actually thrown into satellite communities, the state's responsibility is to make sure there are facilities that actually help them to get the education they need. It's as simple as ABCD. And then when someone is telling you something you may have overlooked, you turn around and name them. That's a shame, Winston. That's a complete shame. And I don't think that there's any right-meaning Ghanaian who condone this kind of statement. It is unfortunate, honestly. And now let me say this again. When people speak on radio about education, it's not because we are privileged. It is because we cannot afford the kind of schools that the ministers and the MPs children attend. We cannot go and pay $1,500. And so we'll continue shining the light. We will continue exposing the negatives so that they work. One last thing, Winston. You see, this is something I'm very, very particular about. If you are a teacher and you teach and your children pass, it is no news because that is why you are employed anyway. You understand me? But it is the things that are actually preventing you from delivering as a teacher that we need to bring out so you will get the necessary resources. For the information of the minister, if he doesn't know, perhaps Joy FM was not only looking at the Ministry of Education, but philanthropists and NGOs, individuals who can help fix the system. It's as simple as ABC, my brother.
Now, I mean, now that you've talked about as a teacher, tell me one thing. I mean, you've been in the classroom. When you go to our public schools to teach, how does it feel? Looking at the environment within which you teach sometimes.
I think that the word the minister was looking for is Ghanaian children are resilient. They are resilient. It doesn't mean that the circumstances within which they find themselves are good. When a teacher stands in a classroom, the fact that the teacher is even present in the classroom is motivation enough for the children to want to learn. And that is why the teacher will deploy resources, improvise materials to make sure the lesson goes on. That does not mean that everything is right. In this country, we've had doctors refuse posting to certain places because of the lack of equipment and facilities. It doesn't mean the situations are right over there. And so he, coming from a deprived community and being successful, his story should be good enough for him to want to change the system. Because in every 10 million people, you get about 10 who will be resilient enough. And let's not move out. Let's please move away from this discussion that when you train your child in a hard way, the child becomes. It is unfortunate. It is nonsensical. Children are supposed to have the amenities they need to learn. Today, we are told that the BEC results are going to be released. Just listen to what is going to happen. When you talk about analyzing what we should do to make the situation better, they will come at you. When you talk about anything that you think technically does not help, they will say you are anti-government. So how do we move forward, Winston? How do we move forward?
Are you suggesting that the managers of our education, including the minister, do not like opposing views?
Everybody in this country, including the president himself, and I'm not going to mince words about this, I have been on record to have said that, look, we don't need free SHS now. Let us wait. I was called anti-SHS, anti-government. So until we begin to accept, as Kofi said, that there are dire issues that we need to deal with, educationally, health-wise, and infrastructure, everything in this country will be failing. And I want to commend Joy FM for bringing this to light. We cannot pretend about it. Winston.
Let me get to Kofi and wrap up the conversation with you, Kofi. So I'll ask you the same question. You deal with the education ministry a lot. Is it the case that the managers of our education, the minister and officials of GES are opposed to divergent views?
Winston, I don't see it like that because at Africa Education Watch, majority of our views has always been divergent, and but we still work with the Ministry of Education, the GES, and other state actors, and so I don't see it from that angle. I see it from the angle that, with my experience working with ministers of education in about 4 or 5 African countries over a period of time, ministers of education would normally be defensive, dismissive, or paranoid anytime they saw a documentary that unearthed problems that they know themselves that they should have done something much better about. That's why I'm saying that if the minister did not feel bad about the documentary, then we had a problem. I know how policies change in the sector. Okay, it starts from that point where government will be uncomfortable. That feeling of uncomfortableness about the documentary is what the first step in creating a compelling situation for government to act. And that is why I will commend multimedia on this documentary and urge that it should be played every week for the next 10 years. Every time you play it. We have been doing some documentaries. And when we finish doing it, the first person we send it to is the minister on WhatsApp. You understand? So you always want to create the awareness. and then also create a compelling situation arising out of the disappointment or the disappointment of the minister or the government official in respect of the problem you are bringing up. So let's continue to project the problem. It is in that projection that we will get the needed action from government. So let's not see it as negative. No, it is very, very positive for the minister not to be okay, to be dismissive, to be paranoid, and to be defensive of the situation. It is an admission that we have failed in that area and that something better can be done. And let's ride on the back of that indirect admission and then continue to show such documentaries, not only one day. It should be serialized over the years so that any government that comes will be reminded that as you spend public funds on other non-priority areas, remember that majority or a sizable chunk of your rural folks are having their children schooling under trees and sheds and dilapidated structures, and that common death remains an issue in the private schools in your country. It will serve as a constant reminder to any government that when you come and you are spending our money lavishly on G8, on cathedral, on very, 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 unprioritized expenditure, we keep reminding you that there are people suffering in the hinterlands who cannot have access to a common school desk or a textbook, an exercise book, or even a roof in their classroom. That will help our politicians begin to appreciate the essence of equitable disbursement of funds for education development. So let's keep on. Let's keep on.
Kofi, Asare, thank you very much for joining us. And Emmanuel Kojo, thank you very much for Director of the Africa Education Watch. And Emmanuel Kojo Afful is a trained and certified teacher with 27 years experience in the classroom. Before I get to you, Raymond, Jojo, Kofi says we should be serializing it. Do you have more to show?
Oh, yes, we have more. The next one comes on Tuesday, and this one focuses on textbooks. What is interesting, I remember the Deputy Education Minister went to the printing house, invited the media, and then, they said we were going to distribute the textbooks to all places. And I remember my colleague, Ashali, asked him, these books, are you sure they will go to all the schools? And he was very angry when he was posed that question. All is in that particular documentary. When we went to Kratche, and from Kratche all the way East Mamprusi, all the way to Pandai, all the schools we went, they didn't have the textbooks. And so it comes on Tuesday.
That's on Tuesday?
Yeah, on Tuesday. And so it would be a very nice feedback.
Is it also Ghana Schools of Shame?
Yes, it's also part of the Ghana Schools of Shame, because, if developed countries are able to send people to space, we can't even send textbooks to people in Pandai and people in East Mamprusi. It's a very big indictment on us. And so on Tuesday, I'll be very excited to see the minister watch and give us a very good feedback, and also send the textbooks to the children who really need them.
Raymond.
Winston, we set up, the institution is called National Schools Inspectorate Authority, right?
Yes, NASIA.
Their job was to inspect schools and tell us a report. End of 2021, they issued the Big When Inspected Schools reports. Winston, 90% of the schools were either unsatisfactory or satisfactory. But satisfactory is nothing to be proud of. Let me tell you why. The criteria for determining the rating of schools, outstanding is the topmost. Good is just okay. Satisfactory is the minimum level of performance for schools, and every school's performance should reach or exceed this level. Unsatisfactory is not an acceptable level of schools for performance for schools in this country. And as I've said, 90% of the schools, in fact, you have to struggle when you go through the report they have laid out to find a school that reached the good or outstanding rate in one of the lists that you actually produced. Let me give you two examples that will make the point quickly. 31st MAKG Primary School. This school, very interesting school, but I think the first thing I should do so that it's not made to look like this school does not exist, as is mostly what they call it, mentioned in the Republic of Ghana, is to tell you that this school we are talking about, 31st, is in East Gonja.
Okay.
Now, 31st MA, this is what he said. The general ranking of 31st is unsatisfactory. This is the summary of the findings. The total number of classrooms in the school was 3 for only the KG department, leaving a deficit of 6 for the primary department, resulting in average class size of 103.
103.
Yes. The desk to learner ratio was 0.3 to 1. 0.3 decks to 1 person. 0.3 to 1.
30%.
Yes, and the same absence of ICT facilities in the school also contributed to inadequacies in the teaching and learning process. The school did not have a constant potable water supply. There were no bungalows in the school to accommodate teachers, especially those who might be coming from relatively far place. In fact, the school currently does not benefit from the National School Feeding Program. This is a school in the Republic of Ghana, one of those tagged unsatisfactory. And I've repeated the point that unsatisfactory and satisfactory, the barest minimum, they are more than 90% of what our own reports. The point I'm seeking to make here is that the minister has this report sitting very close to him. This institution is supposed to be also under his supervision one way or the other. So ordinarily he would have had on his dossier one of those reports on his shelf, this same report. To know this report exists and come out and create the impression that we are the ones painting a picture of bad schools in Ghana is disingenuous, with the greatest of respect. You know them because this is far back 2021. It is the year you publish your report. You set up this institution, the Schools Inspectorate Authority, to do this job. One interesting part is that this is also exactly last year. Today is Wednesday. Last year, I went to interview the minister. I remember
It was a Wednesday.
Yes, you recall vividly. Yes, I went to interview the minister. I raised similar issues about what the Inspectorate Authority has said about the standards of schools. The minister says is the reason why we are upgrading all of them, that we should give him a small time. We will be impressed with the quality he's putting on the ground. About textbooks, that day he told me that printers were going to work that week, and that by the end of the week we would have had, in fact he said in the next 2 months, he's so convinced that all of the schools would have been supplied, and he felt very bad that for years the people have not gotten the textbook. If you move it to the next level, I also showed him the report from the statistical service, and I would read a small part of that so that, they say that I don't have time anyway. But, okay, no, just one line from this report, because it has been raised, and it's important that we do not play with the education of our children. I mean, my argument is that it's mostly not our children, it's the poor people's children education we play with anyway. 94% of residential classes in urban areas, this is the statistical service report, in urban areas nationwide have all levels of basic education consisting of pre-primary, primary, and junior high schools, compared to only 59% in rural areas. The disparity between the urban and rural areas is more pronounced at the pre-primary level. The minister cannot pretend that he doesn't know there is a report that says schools are being placed very far from people in our rural areas.
Well, one thing about the education minister, he is so good about telling you what has to be done and what he believes he should do. Unfortunately, they never get done. And so if you're listening to Yao Saiduchum, you will be pleased.
You'll be excited.
You'll be excited. But when you see him a year after that, he probably will tell you the same thing. We've been talking about education. I mean, we started on a very sad note. We talked about the 8 pupils who drowned in the Sene East District. And then we moved to Ghana Schools of Shame. You heard from, a documentary or our feature on areas where students would have to sit on the floor or go to school with plastic chairs. It's because they don't have desks to sit on. You heard from Kofi Asare. You also heard from Emmanuel, Kojo, Afful, all sharing their views about the state of education in Ghana. It's not time to hear from you. And you can join us on 0302-216-541 and then 0551111997. We're asking a very simple question. Is it wrong to focus on the wrongs in society with a view of having them solved? Or you believe we must focus on the good sides of our dearest country? That's the question we're asking you right here on the Super Morning Show. All right, so let's get onto the phone lines now. And we're starting with Kwesi in Kaswa. Kwesi, good morning. Kwesi, kindly reduce the volume on your radio set so we can hear you. It's giving us some feedback.
Hello?
Yes, Kwesi, kindly reduce the volume on your radio set.
I'm away from the radio.
Kwesi, yes, go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This minister, he seems he talks more than he can act. They are the bane of our educational woes. The documentary, as your panelist said, keep on playing it because the basic schools are dying. No textbooks, no furniture. I'm not a teacher. I teach at the SHS. The caliber of students that they move from the basic schools to the secondary schools, they are much to be desired. I school in the water reading. Nowadays, an SHS student cannot even write it or head.
Hey, really?
The SHS, that's the cause of SHS.
All right, Kwesi.
When you go for marking, the kind of skills we mark. Why is YF delaying the basic school? You finished marking somewhere in November, December, 15th or 17th of December last year.
They've been released now. Thank you very much, Kwesi. Let's get to Salam in Jamestown. Salam, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, Salam, share your thoughts with us.
Yeah, when it comes to education, when doctors and professors are talking, we those who are struggling for first degrees and the rest, we have to be running an entry bathroom. But the way they are failing poto, are you getting it? So we too we must talk. I completed teacher training college in 1998.
Okay.
And I've also worked for more than 20-something years. The education minister is telling you he has worked in America for 10 years. He's so and so and so and so. Look at even the education system. As for the furniture they are talking about, those things you are seeing it. It is real. He doesn't want people to talk about it. So should you give us false hope when there is problem there for people to solve? He has come into the system here, brought the American system. If you come to the primary schools and you see what is happening for yourself, you don't even know whether this country has a future. A standard-based curriculum, core curriculum for JHS, there is no textbook, there's nothing. Even teachers themselves, with the writing of the notes, teachers are confused. I don't know whether he wants us to see, as the politicians always say, they always like propaganda. Seeing the wrong thing and praising them while they are doing the wrong thing. So we all fall into a ditch. The same way the present government has landed all of us into financial difficulties. If that is what you want to do, you have a choice, either to keep on praising him or talk on the side of the other people so we can all feel something.
Thank you very much, Salam from Jamestown. Let's go to Bodriasi where Felix is. Felix, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. How are you?
I'm fine. How about you?
Very well, Mr. This morning, my heart goes for the children that lost their lives trying to access education. There is a shame as a country, right from the top to the down, that a whole minister can come, that we are making you aware of the current problems we have. Let's put that one aside. It's more like the ministers or the leaders we have in this country, they are not conversant with our issues, with our problems. Now, out of someone's job, you have decided to bring these things to bear. You are attacking the person. And you come on radio touting your credentials, whatever. You went to America to enjoy the systems you created in America. What are you doing to improve our systems there? I remember when Mama was building this e-blocks, they were all over saying that Mama was building in the bush. Mama was building in the bush. That we needed the schools here. Now, we are going around saying we are sending Wi-Fi, we are sending laptops to students in the cities, forgetting about this very own of ours. Please, the minister should come again.
Thank you very much. Felix from Bodria say, let's go to Swedru. Richard, good morning.
Richard.
Yes, Richard.
Sorry, my brother. Please, I like long time.
Yes, I'm fine. I hope you're fine too.
I think I've been monitoring you all along. It's a long time I called your station once again. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you very much. In fact, if there is any expressions to be added to your documentary, Ghana School of Shame, I have gone in for that. Because I myself, I'm a teacher, so I'm talking I'm in a secondary school. In fact, I feel that the minister should have eaten a humble pie and come to apologize. Look at what happened there about 3 days today. The death of these two children at the front place. And I was hearing, it's surprising, I heard the minister, the regional minister, or the educational director saying that the community should have volunteers to teach in those areas so that the students will not be crossing and be risking themselves. If the structures are not there, how can you get volunteers? Another area that he was even talking about is that they have safety jackets in the community and this. And that's what the hell of it. In certain jurisdictions, these people should have resigned. They should have been misfired. They should have been fired. The children should go to the community every day and go and solicit for safety jackets. It is pathetic. We need to sit up. Well,
thank you very much, Richard from Swedru. Let's go to Cape Coast, and that will be where we'll pick our final caller. Theophilus, good morning.
Good morning. Talking about the education issue and this tip of minister talking too much and making comparison to America. Now, this thing has created a dent in our education, even to the extent that when someone is being employed in the public tertiary, the person should they look out for those who have schooled outside with the impression that they are better than those who school down here. Look at the setup. For example, the colleges of education, teachers went on strike. The same minister, spoke to them, telling them that, give me 2 weeks and I'm going to sort out your issues for you. Only to come back and then we are told that, hey, this issue will not be solved now because we should come for another meeting, which is very bad. In fact, with how the education is being run, is very, very bad. So I think we should go on playing such audios in order to let people, our ministers sit on their work and then do the best thing for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Theophilus, and we can't pick any more calls now. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us.